Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and this is a breakdown of 2025's Predator Killer of Killers. The release of Predator Badlands is imminent, and this Predator Rewatch series was so valuable for us. And now, this animated film, Killer of Killers, really showed Dan Trachtenberg's interest in expanding the Predator lore and culture, something that we're gonna get to see in live action in Badlands. So we need to break down this anthology film in its 4 parts, 3 separate protagonist stories that come together in one final segment, scene by scene, to point out all the details you missed. Now, we made a separate version of this video released early and ad-free, exclusive for channel members. You can become a channel member by clicking on the join button. So we open this film with Yautja text filling the screen, which is then translated. It's a passage from the Yautja Codex. Go forth among the stars and seek only the strongest prey. They shall be your trophy. Become the killer of killers. Yautja Codex 0522/74. Yeah, so right off the bat, Trachtenberg is telling the audience that this film will be exploring the Yautja lore and culture more than any other film in the Predator franchise that's come before it. In fact, this is really the first time the term Yautja has even been used in a Predator film. Previously, it was just used like in novelizations and other written materials. So here Trachtenberg is saying, hey nerds, I'm now finally a filmmaker who actually read all the same stuff you did. But this passage from the Codex forms the basis for the sacred hunt that we will see the 3 Yautja warriors make on Earth over a period of more than 1,000 years. From these contextual clues, we can gather that the Yautja Codex is similar to like a religious text that lays a foundation for the honor code that the Yautja hunters must follow. And we've seen this practice in all the Predator films before. Yautja seeking to find the biggest warrior or killer and claim that being as a trophy. While no such honor code has ever been expanded upon in the films, there's always been clues that the Yautja species conduct their hunts with certain rules. They never hunt the defenseless, sparing those who do not wield weapons, such as Anna in 1987's Predator. This extends even further when the city hunter spared Leona in Predator 2. Even though she was armed, he let her go when he discovered that she was pregnant. We've also seen the Yautja hunters face their prey with similar combat styles, like the feral hunter would face off with its targets with similar weapon types, melee versus melee or projectile versus projectile. This idea of an honor code has been explored in the expanded Predator universe through comic books, novels, and video games, but it's clear that Trachtenberg wants to start canonizing these elements in the timeline he's building. I always found this honor code thing a bit hilarious, since the Yautja often way outmatch their opponents with their technology. Definitely a little bit of a cheat in my mind, especially when it comes to the cloaking device, but that is perhaps the underlying meta commentary on trophy hunting in the human world that Jim and John Thomas worked into their original script from the very beginning. Even the end of this film will show that while the Yautja have this code of honor that they follow, they'll always try to flip the game in their favor so that they come out on top. So really, just because a species is bound by a certain cultural honor code doesn't mean that there's not an underlying assholeism that really bends that code to whatever vanities pump through this species. At the end of the day, they're not unlike the worst of our species. They're all a bunch of assholes who just gonna justify their actions by this code. This opening also reminds me of the opening of Prey, where we first hear Naru narrate in the Comanche language, which is then translated for the audience.
A long time ago, it is said, a monster came here.
We'll have to see if Trachtenberg keeps up this trend in the opening text or narration of Predator Badlands. A Yautja ship flies through space heading for Earth. This is just like the opening of the 1987 Predator, only this time we see that the ship is arriving in 841 AD. Predator Killer of Killers was released on June 6, 2025 on Hulu in the US and on Disney Plus internationally. The film was a secret project, first revealed to fans in a Hollywood Reporter interview with 20th Century studio head Steve Abel in October 2024. Abel revealed that the film was going to be part of Trachtenberg's growing Yautja universe ahead of the upcoming Predator Badlands. It was definitely a surprise announcement to most fans, and on April 2025, the title and release date were announced, along with the fact that the film would be animated. After the success of Prey, Trachtenberg played around with the idea of an anthology series that would tell multiple Predator stories across different time periods, but he wanted to make sure that the stories were character and thematically oriented, just like Prey, and when the Yautja hunter eventually shows up, it amplifies the intensity of the story. Trachtenberg and Wasson considered the idea of doing Killer of Killers as a series, but when they realized that that would require it being handled by a different producer and development team at 20th Century, they decided to stick with just pitching it as a film to make sure it got made. Once it was approved, the entire project took about 18 months from start to finish. Benjamin Wallfisch composed the score for the film, and it's really impressive how it blends styles across different cultures and time periods. And given that there is so much action packed into this film, the score is constantly moving and driving the story forward. Wallfisch has scored many films, including both recent It films, Blade Runner 2049 and The Flash. Killer of Killers was his first animated film. So on Earth, a fleet of Viking ships sailed towards battle. battle. The first two Vikings we see speak in Old Norse with subtitles, but soon everyone will be speaking what sounds like to us as English. But we can assume that they are still speaking Old Norse as well. This is similar to the convention Trachtenberg did with Prey, blending English and Comanche with the intention of the audience understanding that every time they heard English, it was really Comanche in the context of the scene. Trachtenberg called it the Hunt for Red October thing after that convention was used in the film The Hunt for Red October to avoid having to have everyone speaking in Russian the whole film. We meet Anders and his mother Ursa. Anders says,
"Our men will be glad to return home. We will have more gold than we can carry."
You and I do not fight for gold. Remember that, Anders. Tell me why we fight.
Because our enemy still lives.
So right away we see that Ursa fights with her own code, similar to that of the Yautja, but we'll learn that she's driven by revenge, and it will wind up costing her the life of her own son. Their faces are painted in blood. A lot of the protagonists in the Predator franchise paint their faces for battle, Dutch with the camo paint and mud, and Naru with ash and eventually Yautja blood at the end of that film. But Ursa's blood paint is a reminder of her father's own blood that marked her as a child, a blood curse of violence and revenge that was passed down through the generations. Ursa is also the Latin word for bear, and this warrior is certainly as fearsome as a bear, fighting hard to protect her cub. Also kind of reminds us of that bear that bled so much in Prey. The animation was done by The Third Floor. Killer of Killers is one of the first feature films to be animated using the Unreal Engine, which has been used in many television and film productions including Rogue One, Westworld, Dune Part 2, Fallout, and The Mandalorian. Stephen J. Meyer was a lead animator on Netflix's Arcane and was brought in by the directors to be the head of character animation for Killer of Killers. You can definitely see a similar art style to Arcane, though that was made by the French animation studio Fortiche. Dan Trachtenberg has mentioned a few inspirations for Predator Killer of Killers, including Akira and Netflix's Arcane, but Trachtenberg also mentioned Christopher Guest's comedy Best in Show as a source of inspiration for the film, telling Polygon, quote, "I haven't thought about this for a while, but Best in Show was very much a part of my thinking when it came to making it, because in that movie, being a comedy, you can bond with the characters in a very unique way, and when you get to the end, you realize, wait, I don't want any of them to beat the others. It's not like any other sports movie where you have your protagonist and you're rooting for them to win." So this makes sense why all three protagonists come together in the end to help defeat the Yautja. As the ships approach the walls of a city, the sky is illuminated with flaming arrows that rain down on the Vikings. I'm always reminded of the opening sequence from Gladiator whenever I see the flaming arrows trope. Ursa blocks her son from an arrow with her shield, which you also see is the title for this first chapter, The Shield. Above it is the Futhark rune Algiz, which in some modern systems of runic divination can mean protection or in essence, shield. As blood drips over the title, you can hear the clicks of the Yautja hunter. Starting off with this story set in the time of the Vikings, I'm reminded of how Trachtenberg discovered his composer of Prey, Sarah Schachner, while playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla and being impressed with the soundtrack for that game. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is set during the 870s AD, and in it, the player controls a Viking character as they battle across the British Isles. I have a feeling that video game also inspired this chapter of Trachtenberg's film. You can even choose to make the main character of the game, Eivor, a female. And I guess she does kind of bear a strong resemblance to what would be a younger Ursa. We cut to the end of the Vikings' assault and learn that the entire tribe of Kriviks, except for one, has been slain. The Kriviks were a real tribe union of early East Slavs that lived in Eastern Europe between the 6th and 12th centuries. Ursa interrogates the last one, trying to find the location of their chieftain, Zoran. She ruthlessly tortures him for information as her son looks on. Once she has what she wants, she tells her son to give the man a merciful death, but Anders hesitates. It's clear that he's never killed before, especially considering that in their earlier conversation, Ursa said this to her son:
I pray you bloody your spear tonight. You are ready now.
But Anders hesitates as the man threatens to haunt him.
You'll never go to Valhalla. If you kill an unarmed prisoner, the Allfather will not allow you in. And I will haunt your dreams.
This Viking code is similar to that of the Yautja honor code of only killing those which they deem as a threat. Ursa bisects the man when Anders won't do the job, giving him that brutal look of disappointment, sort of like how Keyes was bisected in Predator 2. Some of the other Vikings console Anders, sort of acknowledging that his mom's bloodlust is a little much. The cloaked Yautja ship flies over the decimated village. Later around the fire, we learn that Ursa was forced by Zoran to kill her own father when she was a child as he screamed, "Avenge me!" This quest for vengeance was basically a curse that has driven Ursa's violent ways throughout her life.
That day, something was born inside of me. A monster with claws around my heart, breathing fire into my soul. And there is only one way to kill it.
But Anders doesn't have that monster inside of him, which is why he is hesitant to kill. As they sailed into the Krivich battle, Ursa said to Anders,
Anders, my beautiful son, if I should fall tonight, avenge me.
Trying to pass down that family monster to Anders that she has shielded him from for so long. Up in the trees where, the Yautja love to hang out, it's the cloaked brute predator watching the group of Vikings below, the rising ash from the fire hitting its stealth cloak. Through the infrared heat vision of his biomask, he tags the warriors below with a heads-up display that looks very similar to that of the feral predator from Prey. The next morning, Ursa enters Zoran's compound wielding 2 shields. As she battles her way in, we learn that the shields are just as much of an offensive weapon as they are a defensive protection. Maybe this could be where the feral predator got this idea for his dual-purpose wrist shield in Prey. I just have to assume that every time the Yautja species have encountered beings that just have interesting weaponry, that knowledge gets passed along to them the same way the flintlock pistol did. Ursa takes down every guard in her way in a fun sequence that's directed like a one-take we've seen in so many action films. Her fellow Vikings aid in her onslaught, and even Anders gets involved, though he uses his spear to deflect a weapon rather than kill the man wielding it. As she decapitates the last man in her way, much like the Yautja decapitate their prey, she finally makes it to the elderly Zoran sitting on his throne. The cloaked brute predator follows the trail of bodies into the compound, surely wanting to find the being responsible for so many deaths. He follows them into Zoran's chamber, tagging the many weapons with his triangle targeting. Ursa monologues at Zoran, so close to finishing her quest for vengeance, but it's clear that Zoran barely remembers who she is, and when he finally does recall, he mocks her for killing her own father. As Anders sees his mother's confidence shaken for the first time, he slices off Zoran's head with a spear. But since the brute predator witnessed Anders use his weapon, he attacks him first with his sonic gauntlet, creating a concussive wave. As he decloaks to face off against the Vikings, the brute predator relies mainly on, brute force to attack his combatants. The only weapon he really utilizes is his sonic gauntlet, which we see has to be activated by a lever before use. I love that the technology of this Yautja is more primitive than that of the jungle hunter, who would come over 1,000 years later. He rips off the head of one of the Vikings with the spine dangling below. Anders hits him with a spear, drawing more of that bright green blood, but Ursa attacks from behind to keep him from going after her son. She gets a few licks in on his head, causing damage to his biomask, as we see by the eclectic sparks spewing out. In all the chaos, Anders is trapped beneath a wooden beam as the building begins to collapse. Ursa is blasted by the sonic gauntlet, destroying one of her shields and launching her into an icy lake. She finds an air pocket underneath the ice as the Yautja searches for her, his biomask showing the damage from her earlier attack, but he cannot see her because the cold water has dropped her temperature. He ditches his broken biomask, revealing his face. Of the many different designs for the Yautja used in Killer of Killers, this guy most resembles the designs of earlier creatures like the jungle hunter and the city hunter. The brute hunter tries to rely on sound to find Ursa as she dashes among the graveyard of frozen Viking ships, since, as we know from Predator, the Yautja's vision capabilities without the biomask are not great. Each time the brute predator tries to hit Ursa with his sonic gauntlet, he slides on the ice in a nice demonstration of Newton's third law of motion. Ursa gets the jump on him with an anchor, whose chain gets wrapped around the brute predator's gauntlet. She breaks the ice with her shield. As they tussle in the icy water, she's able to activate the brute predator's gauntlet and use her shield to blast herself out of the water with its sonic waves, while also directing the creature's head right through one of the arms of the anchor. This guy did not study his Newton. As Ursa makes her way back up to the ruins of the building, she finds her son dying from his injuries in the snow. With his last breath, he asks,
Mother, did you kill the monster?
most likely asking about the creature they were just fighting, but it also refers to the monster of vengeance that Ursa still has inside of herself. Had she not spent her life pursuing revenge on Zoran, she could have just lived peacefully with her son and avoided this untimely death. As she holds her dying son in her hands, we transition to Ursa in some sort of vehicle, totally anachronistic for her time, with a glowing collar around her neck. Wait, what? This will all be revealed in the final chapter, of course, but for now, we focus on the back of the other person with her, sitting on his knees. We cut to black as narration in Japanese begins. The subtitles read, "The leaves of a tree grow side by side, brother, yet when they fall alone." The quote establishes the theme for this story, that even though these brothers are raised together, they eventually lead separate lives with much different paths. Here in the US, November is all about Thanksgiving. All of a sudden, everybody's got hot takes on the right way to do the potatoes and strong opinions about pies. It's easy to forget that for the rest of the world, it's just November, and they've got their own seasonal treats that normally we don't get to try. But getting to try new snacks from Japan is exactly what I love about Tokyo Treat and Sakurako. Tokyo Treat is a fun and exclusive monthly snack box packed with Japan's coolest and craziest treats. Each month you'll get premium snacks normally only available in Japan, like specialized Kit Kat, potato chip noodles, and the latest treats shipped straight to your door. And each box contains a cultural booklet featuring snack descriptions, allergen information, fun insights about Japanese culture, and some detail about the month's theme. November's Tokyo Treat box is all about autumn on Mount Fuji. It's got Mount Fuji inspired snacks like strawberry strawberry white chocolate crunky, and Mike's soy sauce popcorn, and sweet potato puku puku Thai, and Mount Fuji Choco Crunch sandwich cookies, and these melon high chews. It's got a little burst of melon in there. It's very pleasant. I love high chews. Oh, I will choose high chews every day of the week. And for more traditional and authentic autumnal snacks from Japan, check out Sakurako. Sakurako's November box is inspired by Nagano, a peaceful area in the Japanese Alps with its own distinct culinary culture. Enjoy a melon hojicha alongside the apple pie Danish, walnut biscuit, chestnut pie, mitarashi mochi, and all the other tasty treats in this month's Sakurako box. This month's box comes with this really cool saga shippo plate and this really good melon hojicha. So treat yourself or some loved ones this holiday season with Tokyo Treat and Sakurako snack boxes. Enjoy worldwide shipping and delivery straight to your door, and use code New Rockstars for $5 off, or check the link below for their special holiday deals. And thank you so much to Tokyo Treat and Sakurako for sponsoring this video. We're not going to hear much dialogue in this chapter, as the story is told mainly through visuals, which I think is a great creative choice. Actor Louis Ozawa voices both Kenji and Kiyoshi in this film. It's a return to the Predator franchise for him, as he played Hanzo in 2010's Predators, where he also squared off with a katana against a Yautja. It's feudal Japan in 1609, and brothers Kenji and Kiyoshi are raised as fighters by their stern samurai warlord father. One day, as they spar with sticks, they are suddenly called by their father to battle each other with real swords in order to determine who will become their father's successor. I love the detail. The Maya Date on the helmet or kabuto looks like a scar, something that will become a defining feature of Kenji, who ultimately doesn't inherit his father's legacy. Pops slices into the railing with one of the katanas, a mark that will remain over time and weaken the wood. When Kenji pushes Kiyoshi into it later during their battle, this mark will fracture and cause the railing to fall. It's all a symbol of how the mark their father makes in their relationship will weaken and splinter it. Kenji refuses to fight, putting away his sword. It's clear that Kiyoshi doesn't want either, but he ultimately decides to attack, slicing his brother's face in the process. As Kiyoshi takes his place at his father's side, Kenji flees the compound as the title of the second chapter comes on screen, The Sword. Above it, we see the Japanese kanji for sword. Just like the last chapter, it drips with the blood of the Yautja hunter cliques. Throughout this chapter, I love this helmet design of the two jagged pieces, one longer, one shorter, representing the two brothers, bound together by blood. It's now 20 years later in 1629, and Kiyoshi's father has died. Kiyoshi sits next to his father wearing robes with the same symbol his father had worn on his robes and samurai armor. As the bells toll, a villager in a rice field with a certain scar on his face knows exactly what this means. Kenji collects his weapons from his hidden stash as night falls. Kenji will wear all black to storm the compound, what we might consider to be ninja attire, but the convention of ninjas wearing all black was really an invention of Japanese kabuki theater as a way to disguise a ninja character as a stagehand who would also wear all black so that they could spring out and surprise the audience. Actual ninjas didn't just wear all black all the time, they would often dress for their surroundings in order to blend in, for example, dressing as common civilians, royal servants, or monks. However, if a mission was at night, it would make sense for a ninja to dress in black, so considering Kenji will storm the compound at night, his outfit here does make some sense. But unbeknownst to anyone, a Yautja sits on top of a tower in a compound, not even hidden by his cloak. This guy is the Oni Predator, a moniker given to him when he was added to the game Predator Hunting Grounds as part of a DLC pack. An Oni is a demon in Japanese folklore. The Yautja creature has been called a demon in many of the Predator films, and Kenji will refer to this hunter as a demon later in the story when he meets Torres. His design is much different from the brute predator of the first chapter. He's much leaner, with larger lower mandibles and tusks, and some gnarly spikes on his face. There's a reason behind the variety of looks and styles among the Yautja hunters we meet in Killer of Killers, and this was part of Trachtenberg's eagerness to change up the look of an alien species audiences have come to know for the past 30 years. It started with the new design he incorporated for the feral predator in Prey, and he expanded upon that variety even more in Killer of Killers, telling /film, quote, why they aren't all wearing the exact same mask and why they don't look all identical and why they don't behave in slightly different ways is, I get a little bored when we see Kashyyyk, the Wookiee planet or whatever, and they're all just a bunch of Chewbacca's. Some have a little bit of a gray fur and some of them don't, but they're all basically Chewbacca, just standing around being Wookiees. As the Oni Predator tags the many guards throughout the compound, he discovers Kenji sneaking in via a piece of driftwood in the river. He decides to activate his cloak and get to business. He watches as Kenji scales the wall and traverses the rooftops. But Kenji gets distracted when the Oni Predator's cloak distorts his view of his brother, causing a guard to spot Kenji. We get a great sequence where Kenji fights to keep the alarm from being sounded, but ultimately, all the hard work is for naught as a guard across the courtyard spots the chaos and just bongs. Now, alerted to the threat, Kiyoshi begins to don the samurai armor as his men take defensive positions, but Kenji uses red smoke bombs to take out the men and get close to his brother. The red smoke filling the room resembles the true vision of the Yautja that we saw in Predator, the 1987 film, after the jungle hunter had removed his biomask to fight Dutch. Kenji touches the mark in the railing that his father made 20 years ago, remembering that pivotal moment in his life. Kenji reveals himself to his brother as the Oni Predator settles in for the fight. The brothers battle, with Kenji pulling out his shorter wakizashi after his katana is torn away. He does this cool drop flip with it, sort of like the signature move of the Winter Soldier in the Marvel movies. The brothers use a variety of weapons and defensive gear throughout the fight, including this sick Kuziergama, which is a sickle connected by a weighted chain. They go up in the rafters fighting around the Oni Predator, who is just biding his time. Kenji kicks his brother into the railing, which fractures at the exact spot their father made with the katana 20 years ago. He slices his brother's face just as Kiyoshi had done to him, and then appears to sheathe his weapon. This is all the revenge he wanted, but the railing finally gives way, and Kiyoshi falls, seemingly to his death. Kenji looks distraught. Over his shoulder, a painting of his father creates an ominous metaphor. As Kenji gets lost in a memory, the Oni Predator swipes through the paper wall with his bladed glove. This guy could have attacked at any moment, but he waited until Kenji was alone to attack him from the front, in essence, keeping with his honor code of hunting. Kenji escapes the room as some of Kiyoshi's men rush in. The Oni Predator makes quick work of them, using a sharp grappling hook from his gauntlet and his combi stick that can split at the end to some devastating results. The creature pursues Kenji, cloaking to give himself even more of an advantage. He launches some proximity mines from his gauntlet, similar to the mines the feral predator used in Prey. They race across the rooftops, and Kenji smartly uses his smoke bomb so that he can see the stealth-cloaked creature in order to hit him with some kunai. Those are the small throwing knives. As he crashes through a building, he lands in the moat on the outside of the compound as the sun begins to rise. Thinking he has gotten away, Kenji is suddenly attacked by Kiyoshi, who has survived his fall. Probably assuming his brother tried to kill him, he wants to kill Kenji first. Kenji is able to get Kiyoshi to stop, but the Oni Predator comes flying in with his wrist blades extended. Kiyoshi pushes his brother out of the way and gets impaled. The brothers work together to fight the creature, with Kenji at one point dislodging some of the proximity mines. The Oni Predator uses his grappling hook, but Kenji plants a proximity mine in the pincers as he reels the chain back in. The mine explodes on the creature, knocking him into a tree with a bright green blood splat as he goes stealth again. But then we get an awesome anime-style moment where Kenji and Kiyoshi rush toward each other with their katanas. But as a falling leaf reveals, they are actually zeroing in on the hunter, who they slice in half. They clean their blades of the green blood, but it's too late for Kiyoshi. His wounds are too grave. The brothers kneel beside each other as the sun continues to rise, and Kiyoshi recalls the poem from the beginning of this chapter. But here, Kenji finishes it. Their father probably taught them the original poem in a lesson likely intended to split them apart, but Kenji rejects all that nonsense, regretting their time separated at the hands of their father. Now they share the same scar and are brothers again, but Kiyoshi falls and dies as Kenji kneels in the same pose we first saw him in. The glowing collar appears on his neck as we transition back to the transport and reveal our third character via his dog tags. It's John Torres. The jazzy trumpet opening of In the Mood, made popular by Glenn Miller and his orchestra, begins to play. We jump to Florida, 1941, as a biplane swoops over a sugarcane field. John Torres rips by in a roadster, probably from the 30s, showing us that he loves speed. As it breaks down, he asks his dad for help fixing it. John Torres is voiced by Rick Gonzalez, and his dad is voiced by Felix Solis, who you might know as the cartel head in Ozark. It's clear Torres has dreams of flying. His dad asks him if he thinks he's Charles Lindbergh, the first pilot to complete a solo transatlantic fight. It's funny that Torres' dad would make that comparison here, considering his son is about to fight in World War II, and Lindbergh was a staunch isolationist who believed in a non-interventionist policy in the war. He was also later accused of being a Nazi sympathizer, though he did publicly and privately denounce the Nazis. There's a lot of uncertainty there. Torres and his dad speak a mix of English and Spanish together, which is a nice, authentic touch. Trachtenberg seems to always be shooting for that cultural authenticity in his work, which I just appreciate, and the mix of languages throughout this film sets up how our protagonists will have to learn to work together without the use of a shared spoken language. Torres watches as his dad carefully listens to the motor of the broken car, ultimately determining that the engine was flooded. While he pushes his dad for the quick solution to the problem, Pops takes the opportunity to impart a life lesson.
Listen to me. Dreams are fuel, but you're not flying because you can't make the engine work. I'm done bailing you out, mijo. You have to bail yourself out from now on.
He wants his son to learn to solve his own problems because he's been drafted into World War II. All three of these stories had a subtext of parents passing along something to their children. In the first two chapters, it was sort of a curse stemming from the idea that violence is the only true strength. But here, Torres' dad wants to impart true wisdom to his son. It's not brute force, but listening and problem solving that are important, and that lesson will help Torres save the other two protagonists later on. This chapter is called The Bullet. Above the title is a white star, a common marking on all vehicles of the Allied forces in World War II, used to help different nations identify other friendly forces. Torres will paint some very rough-looking white stars on his own fighter plane called the Bullet. We're now in the North Atlantic in 1942. Torres has been fixing up an old Grumman F4F Wildcat he's named the Bullet. He's doing this because he was grounded by his commander. Commander Vandenberg, aka Vandy, is voiced by Michael Biehn, Kyle Reese from The Terminator, and Corporal Hicks in Aliens. In fact, he's one of 3 actors who has appeared in the Terminator, Alien, and Predator franchises. The other 2 are Bill Paxton, who is in Terminator, Predator 2, and Aliens, and Lance Henriksen, who is in Terminator, Aliens, and Alien vs. Predator in 2004. Though Bill Paxton might be one of the few people who's been killed by all 3 of these threats, by a Terminator, by a Xenomorph, and by a Yautja. Torres wants to get back in the air, but Vandy makes it clear there's more to being a pilot than just flying fast and fancy maneuvers. He encourages Torres to keep working on his old plane when suddenly some pilots return to the carrier and wrecked aircraft, talking about an enemy with hooks in the sky. Vandy and the rest of the pilots take off to deal with the threat. Torres finds a piece of the Yautja's weapon lodged in the engine of one of the planes. While examining it, the object first reacts to the heat from a blowtorch, then rips away an airplane engine as Delgado starts it up. Early evidence that these devices are attracted to heat. Torres tries to get a warning to Vandy and his fellow pilots, but they can't get through to them.
There's something else up in the sky, and it's not Vichy fighters. We gotta let the aces know.
I already told you, they're out of range. Or the frogs are jamming us.
Vichy fighters were fighter planes that were part of the Vichy French Air Force. The Vichy French government was the part of the French government that worked with the Nazi German government during World War II following the invasion of France. And frogs was kind of a derogatory word for the French, which could have originated from frog legs often being on the menu in France. The cloaked Yautja ship is already watching the Allies engage with the Axis in the sky. We get this cool view of the alien ship's targeting tech that functions much like the biomasks, sensing the infrared signatures of the airplanes. Torres decides he's gonna take the Bullet and go help. Before he takes off, he uses his father's advice and listens to the engine. He keeps a picture of him and his dad in front of his dad's garage on the control panel. Delgado also tosses him a parachute that he'll use later. After a rough takeoff, he catches up with his squadron. Just as the Yautja ship starts attacking, Torres tries to warn them not to engage, but they don't listen. One pilot flies directly into the hidden ship, which starts to decloak. We get a look at the Yautja pilot, and we'll call him the Pilot Predator, who has a greenish skin and a metal eye patch with a small mask covering his mouth. He doesn't wear a biomask in his ship, presumably relying on the craft's own targeting system. He also appears to be bald with no dreadlocks. Maybe that's why he likes to stay in his ship and fight rather than doing the hand-to-hand rumbling like he's embarrassed. As far as the honor code for hunting that the Yautja supposedly follow, this Pilot Predator greatly outmatches his prey. His harpoons rip through these World War II era fighters. Their bullets just ricochet off his ship. And I don't think this guy is out there collecting skulls or anything. Whatever his hunt is about, it's very different from any other Yautja we've seen. He even burns a pilot alive just because I guess he feels like it. Torres' plane catches fire and he climbs out on the wing to fix it. This might seem a little silly, and Trachtenberg acknowledges that there was more he could get away with by making the film animated, saying, quote, "I certainly wouldn't in a live action movie stick a guy on the wing of a plane trying to fix it in a mid-air battle or do a trench run through the streets of Casablanca. I think it would be a little goofy in live action, but animated, it's so whimsical and fun. And all the gore and the violence, to express that the way we do, that was just really the draw and the inspiration. It was really just indulging in it all." Another pilot dislodges one of the Yautja's harpoons, but he launches a netball, which catches the plane and slices it into bits. The flaming pieces of the pilot whiz past Torres on the wing. The feral predator and prey also used a netball to slice up the French fur trapper. As the Pilot Predator zeroes in on the heat signature from Torres' engine, he's able to dislodge the flaming fuel tank from his wing.
Get off my plane!
Yeah, this is surely a reference to Harrison Ford's excellent line in Air Force One.
Get off my plane.
The Yautja's harpoon misses Torres' plane and instead hits the falling fuel tank, creating a huge fireball. Torres finally puts all the pieces together and realizes that these things track heat. Torres and Vandy are the only ones left. Torres shares his heat theory with Vandy and they climb to cool their engines. I like this shot where the camera is fixed to the wing as Torres noses up his plane, resetting the orientation of the screen so that the vertical is now horizontal. That way we can see all the aircraft in frame. Torres goes goads the hunter by saying this.
Dale, motherfucker.
Dale is kind of a versatile word in Spanish, but here I think he's saying, go ahead, or do it, similar to how Dutch tried to lure in the jungle hunter in 1987's Predator, and many other characters would echo throughout the franchise. And of course, the Yautja have also been called motherfuckers, but usually preceded by, you are one ugly. As their control panels start to freeze over, Vandy keeps his engine running to buy Torres some time. He's hit by this nasty disc with hot ropes that cuts his plane apart and chops off his head. The pilot Predator loses track of Torres' plane as they break through the cloud ceiling and drop back down toward the surface. Torres keeps his engine off and glides behind the ship, shooting out one of its engines. Now that the hunter knows he's here, Torres turns his engine back on and dives toward the ground with the Yautja in pursuit. We get this funny scene with some French Vichy soldiers sitting at a table, and one of them asks the other in French if he has visited Rick's Cafe, which is a reference to the film Casablanca, where Humphrey Bogart runs Rick's Cafe American in Casablanca in Morocco during World War II. So this dogfight is currently happening over the skies of Casablanca. As Torres dives between the buildings, the Vichy French start firing. The Yautja craft tries to stay cloaked, but the stealth starts to fail as it takes hits from the anti-aircraft guns. Torres leads the craft to a naval battle in open water. The alien ship takes more damage and hits the water, but it's not out for the count as it rises back up in pursuit of Torres, a hole blown in the cockpit. Taking a moment to think, Torres remembers the moment with his dad in the car and floods his plane's engine with gas. Then he goads the Yautja to come one more time, just like Dutch in the first Predator film.
Come on, come on, come on! Come on, you son of a bitch! Shoot me down!
The pilot Predator fires the harpoon as Torres unfurls the parachute to drag the whole plane backwards, causing the harpoon's rope to wrap around the ship and slam the gas-filled engine into it, blowing it up completely. The explosion is incredibly large, likely a self-destruct feature intended to destroy all evidence of the alien craft should it ever be damaged beyond repair, similar to what the jungle hunter does at the end of the Predator and various other Predators try to do. Torres lands in the ocean and fires a rescue flare. Sometime later, at his dad's garage, Torres works on an engine as If We Should Ever Meet Again by the Maury Morrison Orchestra plays on the radio. He and the Yautja are indeed about to meet again. The building begins to shake as his medal from the war rattles off a nearby table. It kind of looks like a Navy and Marine Corps Medal for Heroism, which was the highest non-combat decoration awarded for heroism to the members of the United States Navy and United States Marine Corps. I guess fighting an alien ship didn't count as combat, or just whoever awarded it didn't believe that there was an enemy aircraft that he was fighting against. As he steps outside, a huge Yautja ship decloaks and targets him with a classic 3-point laser. As it abducts Torres and takes off, we see the large crop circles left behind in the sugarcane. Finally, an explanation for crop circles. This is the beginning of the fourth and final chapter of the film. Though it doesn't get an official title, it's often just referred to as the battle. Torres awakes from being cryogenically frozen. This explains how these three different protagonists from across 1,000 years can be in the same place at the same time. It appears that the Yautja return to abduct those warriors that are able to defeat their hunters. He's taken by some Yautja sentry, whom he calls the derogatory term pendejos, and is thrown in a transport with Ursa and Kenji. Here, the language barriers become an issue. Ursa spits in his hand and says he was birthed from an anus. Kenji asks in Japanese if he killed one of the demons as well. Torres tries to use some of the Japanese he learned in basic training in the military, but it doesn't go well. Our three protagonists are taken to an arena with a giant skull at its center. Presumably, we are on Yautja Prime, the Yautja homeworld featured in some of the expanded comics and novels in the Predator franchise. Trachtenberg has indicated in some interviews that the clan we meet in Killer of Killers is not representative of the Yautja as a whole, but we do know, given the tease at the end, that the feral predator from Prey was from this clan as well. And it seems like based off of the terrain we see in Yautja Prime in this movie, we will also be revisiting this planet in Predator Badlands. A leader, whom Ursa refers to as the Grendel King, steps down from a ship. I love the design from these long spines draped over his shoulders that form a cape. Some fans theorize that these long spines belong to xenomorphs, but co-director Joshua Wasong told The Direct that the vertebrae could belong to any number of creatures, saying, quote, "I will say that we designed that character to be as regal as possible, mixed with the most brutality you can imagine, but we really wanted the fans to decide where each of those crazy skeletons come from. We figured there are all kinds of fun possibilities because it's not just one, there are a lot of them. So that's where I believe it is really up to the fans, and to kind of put the history into this character. Grendel is a monstrous character from the epic Beowulf, which would have been created during Ursa's time in history. Grendel is described in the epic as a creature of darkness, the destroyer and devourer of humankind, and very terrible to look upon. So we see how she's kind of applying her own Mupitzial legend to these creatures. For one of the first times, we get to hear the Yautja's spoken language, which is translated for our protagonists via their collars. They are to fight to the death, with the winner ultimately facing the Grendel King.
Yautja, ye
Become the killer of killers, the titular line. A Yautja prisoner is brought forth to demonstrate that the collars can blow up your head, and the crowd does a ceremonial blood sacrifice with their wrist blades. Each warrior is given a weapon of their tribe. Ursa gets an axe, Kenji gets a katana, and Torres hilariously gets a flintlock pistol. And yes, it is the Raphael Adelini pistol that Naru received in Prey, and then eventually given to Harrigan in Predator 2. Ursa immediately starts attacking, but Kenji and Torres try to convince her to work together. The Grendel King releases a huge beast into the arena. Again, not really a fair fight from these aliens. The beast has a fun design, where his mouth is on the back of his head. The beast swallows up one of the guards, his arm getting severed in the process, and eventually the beast swallows Torres whole. He uses the dead guard's severed wrist blade to hack the animal from the inside. Ursa finds a shield, her weapon of choice, and she and Kenji start attacking the beast from the outside, eventually killing it. They remove the beast from the arena, with Torres still inside. Kenji refuses to stop fighting, screwing up Ursa's desire to die in battle so that she can meet her son in Valhalla. But Torres returns and is able to remove everyone's collars with the dead guard's wrist gauntlet. They make their way up to the Grendel King, and while Ursa and Kenji work to take him down, Torres sneaks onto his ship. Torres is able to get the ship airborne, but as Ursa and Kenji run for the door, Kenji sacrifices his arm to save Ursa. As the three of them take off, a Yautja guard uses a harpoon gun to catch them before they get away. Realizing she'd rather be in Valhalla with Anders than with these dudes, Ursa finally slays the monster inside her, tells Kenji and Torres to not avenge her, and slides down the chain on her shield. She breaks the mechanism, releasing the ship, which takes off into the sky. Kenji calls Torres his brother. The Grendel King is like, fuck yeah, and calls his people to let's go hunting, as several of the Yautja spaceships take off in pursuit. The end! But wait, there's a post-ending scene. Ursa was not killed, but rather was placed back in a cryostasis, which also means she's still not in Valhalla. As some Yautja sentries lead her pod to the storage facility, a very Raiders of the Lost Ark ending if you ask me, we pass by many cryostasis pods that presumably contain many warriors who have defeated Yautja hunters. There seems to be thousands of pods, so maybe these guys actually get killed a lot. I mean, I guess if you're freezing bodies for thousands of years, it's bound to add up. Some pods contain alien-looking creatures, while others hold what look to be humans. As we pass by one row of cryostasis pods, the camera lingers and zooms in to reveal Naru, the Comanche warrior from Prey. You can also hear the strings from the song Predator Instinct from Sarah Schachner's awesome score for that film. This explains the animation at the end of the credits of Prey that shows 3 Yautja spaceships returning to confront Naru. Turns out they took her and placed her in cryostasis. Now, like 6 weeks after this movie came out at San Diego Comic-Con in 2025, where I actually got to interview Dan Trachtenberg and the stars of Predator Badlands, there in Hall H I got to see Dan Trachtenberg showing an extended version of this scene that revealed the Yautja had both Dutch from Predator and Harrigan from Predator 2 in cryostasis as well. So I guess Harrigan was right when he predicted the Yautja would be back. It also means that the Raphael Adelini flintlock pistol made it to the arena after the events of Predator 2, and that whenever this is right now, it must be at least after the year 1997. Though who knows where we are in the future? It could be long after that. Now, when Trachtenberg revealed this at Comic-Con, he also said that Arnold Schwarzenegger gave his blessing for the Dutch character to return in news stories. So if there ever is a follow-up to Killer of Killers, we'll have to see if Naru, Dutch, and Harrigan could wake up out of deep freeze. The working title for Killer of Killers was Warehouse, and seeing this deep storage facility really explains why this project started with that title. Trachtenberg told Polygon, quote, "So the movie was made under the codename Warehouse, as that end moment was the original idea pitched to the studio, and it felt like the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Certainly Arnold, like many others, was a survivor of his long history, and one could easily imagine him up there in cryo, along with any other Earth champion or champion from other planets. The end credits retell the 4 chapters of the story in a style representative of each character's culture. Ursa's story is told in Nordic wood carvings, Kenji's has a traditional Japanese style, Torres' story is told with American World War II propaganda style posters, and the final chapter is represented in Yautja style tech. And that is everything we found in 2025's Predator Killer of Killers. Huge thanks to Brandon Barrick for writing and researching this breakdown. Big thanks to all of our channel members, including Bro, who supports us at the executive producer level. Follow me at EA Voss and subscribe to all the channels in the New Rockstars network for breakdowns and news coverage of everything you love. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!